Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wrestling with Statistics. This is a brand new show where we take a unique approach to viewing the world of professional wrestling through the lens of statistics, analysis, and everything in between. I am your host, Ryan Neitzey, and with me is the man, Pro Wrestling Musings himself, Craig Leask. Craig, how are you doing, my friend?
As I was just saying, I'm super confident for our first podcast. I couldn't be more confident right now. Definitely not very nervous and too full of coffee.
Yeah, brimming. Hold on, I forgot the word. You're glowing with confidence. I can see it in your face. This is a brand new show. Craig and I, we've worked together in the past, and Craig came up with this idea of doing a show, and here we are today. We got a lot of stuff for you. Of course, this week on the docket, we're looking at the semifinals of the AEW TNT title tournament. Of course, those matches being Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin, and also Lance Archer versus Dustin Rhodes. We're going to be looking a little bit at that. Of course, we got all of these stats and numbers from Craig himself.
And we're going to be diving into those two matches that were very well received, quite rightly so. But two matches that were very different in terms of the kind of the stories that they were told and the numbers that you can highlight behind those stories that were told.
Yeah, I think that's been always the thing that has always grabbed my attention by what you've done over at Pro Wrestling Musings, Craig, is that this, and I think that's what, for me, what's interesting about the show is that what the stats, obviously when we're watching wrestling matches, there's, we can see the story, we see the facial expressions, the emotion, the struggle, and that obviously is telling a story, right? But when you're looking at the numbers and the stats and everything, it's like, oh, there's its own story that's happening in all of these numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. This kind of came from sports statistics in general, watching sports and being able to dive deeper into whatever sports you tend to watch via the statistics. And if wrestling is, dare I say it, a form of sports entertainment, then
there should be like an alarm that sounds.
have I just killed the podcast already? But yeah, you can, statistics. These are statistics behind everything. People do statistics on Game of Thrones, so you can do it with wrestling.
Oh, I want to look up those Game of Thrones statistics. I haven't seen those. Let's talk about the first match, Craig. First matchup, of course, was Darby Allin versus Cody Rhodes, semifinal match for the TNT title tournament. A lot of interesting numbers came out of this one, and there's a lot of interesting talking points to talk about it. Craig, I'll throw it to you, of course, first. What are some things that came out to you in sort of the numbers?
Yeah, so I did some work on this going in, and obviously people will know that there were two matches before. Cody won one, the other one was a draw. And Cody was, very much people's favorite going in. He's higher in the AEW rankings. I did some work on like their rates of offense. Cody has he hits more strikes and more grapples in an hour of wrestling in comparison to Darby Allin. His overall offense per hour is far higher as well. But then on the flip side, Darby Allin is able to pack in more subtractions, submissions in an hour of wrestling, as well as dives, unsurprisingly. But the interesting thing, in their last 5 matches before this, going in, both were on a 4-match winning streak, both with a lose, win, 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 win in their last 5 matches.
These guys have had a history, and I'm very interested to talk about that history. I remember thinking, very early on at their draw at Fyter Fest is Darby coming across as a guy that is equal footing to Cody, and it still, I don't know if that's, I think maybe that the story with this match as well is that it appears that Darby might no longer be of equal footing to Cody, so someone like a Cody Rhodes. I don't know if it was, there's a title match around the corner and Cody really, really wants it here, or if it is just Darby is coming leveling down a little bit. Does that make sense?
Okay,
He
sure.
yeah, like you said, like they both have had this streak of past couple matches. They're both very similar. But when we get here and we look at the strikes and the strike downs and grapples of this match, it feels very one-sided. Just looking at the numbers right now, it's like Cody had more strikes, strike downs, dives, reversals, fouls, which is, I mean, not really a benefit, I guess, to Cody, but he was on top of Darby constantly. I mean, for someone like Darby Allin, who is known for his dives, the fact that Cody had more one dive versus Darby's 0, so very different. And also there was the whole distraction with Cody with the Brandy Rose getting injured and everything, that Cody was still able to be constantly on top of Darby.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The numbers here I think, you've seen through the obvious flaw here. The match offense is 51% to 49 in favor of Cody, which could suggest it was equal.
That's true. I'm looking at the flow of offense right now. There was one stat that you told me before we started that I wanted to point out, that Darby had one strike in the first 5 minutes of the match.
Yeah, so essentially what happened in this match is, as you've described, Cody was on top. The only reason I would suggest that Darby Allin gets anywhere near Cody's kind of offense output is because Cody seemed to try and do a matrix out of a pin, which is something that I've never seen him do before, and then tweaked his knee, which might even suggest he's never done it before. Maybe not the best timing. But Darby Allin's, the reason his accumulation of offense came from putting submissions on that knee, which is usually a tactic a wrestler will use when they're kind of against it, they're struggling. And Darby did look quite desperate at times. He even took to headbutting Cody's knee as Cody was on the ground. So again, his performance didn't reek of a man that was in the driving seat.
Do you remember what time or how many minutes into the match where Cody tweaked his knee? Or would you make a rough estimate, maybe like 5 minutes or so in?
I would, do you know what? Yeah, it does look like it might be 5 minutes or so. I don't have that exactly, but yes, about 5, 6, 7 minutes in.
Okay, so it would make sense to say that if you're looking at the flow of offense,
it changes dramatically when that happens.
Yeah, like the moment Cody tweaks his knee, Darby takes advantage, and then Darby is able to come back, but not just come back, but basically come very close to even with Cody for the rest of the match.
It could be argued, well, it could be very strongly argued that Cody wins it off the back of Darby Allin overreaching his hand. He thought that he had it won and overshot, perhaps.
For me, I just think of like looking at the graph, like the what if scenario of like, obviously it's wrestling and there's workings and all this stuff and booking and stuff. But the scenario, looking at it in the sports eye, the scenario of what happened if Cody did not tweak his knee, then Cody probably would have potentially could have easily handed Darby a loss. I don't know if Cody not tweaking his knee would have helped Darby in any sense. It looks like the knee tweak is what really helped Darby get some sort of comeback in this match.
Yeah, that's true. And I would agree with that idea. And the only other thing to point out is that this is a pattern with Darby.
Oh, really?
He is booked as this underdog babyface. He doesn't tend to get a lot of offense in his matches. In fact, his average is 43%. So he generally gets 43% of the offense in matches. So it's, less than half, obviously.
Yeah, compared to Cody, who has 56% match offense?
Exactly. So those numbers almost marry up perfectly. So Darby's had a good match here, essentially 49% compared to his usual 43%, and restricting Cody to 51 instead of 56.
Just in comparison, that 43% names of people that are around the same number as Brandon Cutler, Marco Stunt, Sonny Kiss, Chuck Taylor, like in one-on-one matches, of course.
Yeah.
These are people that, ranking wise, nowhere close to, I would say, Darby Allin. Yet Darby Allin rarely gets that much offense. For Cody, looking at his one-on-one, people around Cody, Pac, Daniels, who else? Colt Cabana, which is also fairly new, so there's still evidence out on that. QT Marshall is also very strange. I see QT Marshall up here this high. MJF also very similarly.
Kind of close to Kip Sabian.
Kip Sabian, that guy he's can't shake him.
He's got a good record though. Actually, I'm underselling him. In straights, in 1v1s, Kip Sabian has a very good record. So
Cody is, I think Kip Sabian might have to be like his own episode at some point. Just like looking into Kip Sabian, because it's like, for me, he is such this wild. He feels like an anomaly, right? I don't know about you.
An anomaly, yes.
He's much higher statistically than anyone would have put him at. It's just this guy. I don't know what's happening, but he's so well protected.
In terms of ring time and statistics, he's booked very strongly. It's interesting.
Yeah, back to Cody Rhodes versus Darby. Of course, Cody eventually gets the win when he is able to reverse a pinfall attempt by Darby into sort of a crucifix pin, and he gave it that sudden flash pin, I guess you would say. Cody getting a win here. He outdid Darby throughout the entire match, and just Darby always working from beneath. And, did not just get it. How do you feel about Cody getting up the victory?
It makes sense. It makes sense in terms of where they were going. A lot of people there's been a lot of chat online about Darby Allin being buried, but I think that's simplistic. All the best storylines tend to have long-term builds. I'd like to hope that they go in a similar direction to New Japan and the kind of simmering Will Ospreay Kazuchika Okada storyline, where it looks like it's this long build to Will Ospreay finally picking up a win, and that would be smart here. It's not something that American Western fans are used to.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like the idea that obviously eventually when Darby gets that first big win, I like the idea of it being against someone like a Cody Rhodes. Whereas it's like, oh, we've cemented the idea, like, okay, Darby is now here, he's here to wrestle, he's here to play, when that happens, who knows? But I like the idea that like Darby is all about. I mean, Darby through the rest of his career has always been about slowly building up to the rankings, building up to potential titles. I don't think he ever won the Evolve title when he was in Evolve, or the heavyweight title for Evolve.
I don't think so.
But slowly building up Darby to eventually he's like a pot that has been on boil for so long that eventually that boil is going to overtake and just blast the lid off of the pot.
He's in that group with Sammy Guevara, MJF, or the sort of
Kip Sabian.
Kip Sabian, yeah, the homegrown, so to speak, AEW kind of talent, and he looks most, him or Jungle Boy looks most kind of underdog, babyface. They need a long story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm interested to see where they go with Darby Allin moving forward. Let's move on to the next matchup. Of course, it was another semifinal match between Dustin Rhodes and Lance Archer in the TNT tournament. Looking at these things, this match tells a completely different story than the Cody Darby Allin match, obviously, because we have wildly different competitors in Dustin and Lance. What are sort of the story points that showed it to you, Craig?
Yeah, so going in, it's very different. Dustin was kind of win lose. Archer going in 3-0. Archer's ranked, Dustin wasn't. And what's interesting though is Dustin Rhodes has better statistics for amount of offense that he'd get in, but I think that comes down to the way that Archer wrestles that we'll come back to later on. So yeah, it was, nobody was giving Dustin Rhodes much of a chance here.
Yeah, I will admit myself that like looking at this match, I was like, I don't know if Lance is looking pretty good. Of course, Lance is a new person in this promotion, but I was just like, I don't know, Dustin, it's gonna be a tough one here, and it was a tough one. Obviously, very early on in the match, Dustin Rhodes gets busted open, and is just bleeding out the rest of this match. Just looking at the numbers here, there's one number that really sticks out to me, Craig, and that of course for me was the strike downs. I think that's really, if you're looking for a story point, to me that's the story point, is that strike downs wise, Dustin gets 1 strike down, Lance Archer gets 8 strike downs. And if I remember correctly, these are of course your stats, but if I remember correctly, strike downs is that when you strike an opponent and they fall down. That's pretty simply,
yes,
right?
Exactly, yes.
Just to be clear.
Just
And comparing that to just normal strikes, Dustin gets 49 strikes, Lance gets 32. So to me, it's like, oh, Dustin is on top. Dustin has more strikes than Lance Archer, but when Lance Archer hits him, Dustin goes down, and I that seems to be the story for me in this match.
Yeah, when you look at these numbers, Dustin Rhodes 56% of the total offense. If you watch the match, that might sound confusing. You might not, have a memory of Dustin Rhodes pummeling Lance Archer, and that's because that's not what happened. Dustin Rhodes 2% of his strikes downed Lance Archer, whereas Lance Archer was all the way up there at 25%.
Wow.
1 in 4 downing Dustin Rhodes, which makes a lot more sense.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's also the aspect that, like, you're looking at match offense. There's the aspect that Lance Archer as I guess character would be the word. As a character, Lance Archer is a person that likes taking punishment and then converting that almost in a way to dealing out punishment. There are multiple times in that match where Lance Archer is asking to get hit, and then when he does get hit, he's just sort of like laughing it off, and then just knocks Dustin on his ass.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what you need to keep in your mind when you're reading these statistics. It's not just the amount of numbers. You need to look at the strike downs. Lance Archer asks to get punched and then laughs in his face and knocks him down. It seems to be how he's building his character, and it's different and it's interesting.
Very interesting. Also, he just doesn't care about his opponents. We're looking at 8 fouls, 7 taunts.
Yeah.
He's literally just like what was the word? Playing with his food is the way I would describe Lance Archer.
Yeah, just doing what he wants essentially, which you will notice that from the minute he comes out. This week he brought a random from backstage with him just to throw on the ground as he came in.
Or conversely, in all of his squash matches that he was having a couple weeks prior, he would just come out, make his entrance, go into the ring, boot down his opponent, and then continue taunting, finishing up his entrance, and then undress and get ready for the match.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just a bulldozer, plain and simple.
Now I'm looking at the flow of offense here, Craig. Archer very consistent in his offense here. It looks like.
So it's a line essentially. He's very consistent throughout the match, whereas Dustin Rhodes rises and falls dramatically at the end.
I guess similar question. Do you at all remember when Dustin got busted open, time wise?
So that would have happened around 7 minutes.
7-minute marker? Oh, that's
interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so it was like looking at the stats here. It's basically is You know,
Do you know what? I think that happened around 3 or 4 minutes, actually. I think it was very early.
3 or 4, you think?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's Dustin and Archer are very even, then Dustin gets busted open, and then it's just like, just trying to fight or whatever, just trying to go
Yeah.
down. Yeah, I think for me, another story point about this match is that this match really is about Dustin's heart and Dustin's determination to try to overcome Lance Archer despite bleeding from the skull, despite his opponent, of course. Dustin just kept trying, what's the phrase he uses? Keep stepping. Just keeps working, keeps tirelessly working to try to get some more offense in, try to keep fighting him, trying to keep downing him. But whenever, it's just Lance playing with his food. He's playing with a dying animal essentially, and just knocks him on his ass and then takes him out with the ABD claw.
Yeah, essentially, the graph kind of backs up everything you just said there. They start even. Dustin gets hurt. It slumps down as he's kind of taken advantage of, and then he has a second wind, gets the kind of biggest spike in offense of the match, and then eventually is just overwhelmed by his behemoth of an opponent.
Okay, so what else is there to say about Lance Archer, Dustin Rhodes? Of course, at the end of the match, was it QT and Brandy considered throwing in the towel, but Cody sort of refuses. Or was Cody refusing? Hold on, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, Cody refuses, and then Lance takes the towel out of Cody's hand and throws it away so that he can continue beating up an old man.
I mean, yes, that is correct. Yeah, I think outside of stats, there is. I just want to make a point here that there was that yearly, the Dustin Rhodes bleeding from his head, and was a obvious callback to Double or Nothing last year with Cody versus Dustin. Then of course you have the towel being a callback to both the Jericho Cody match and the MJF Cody story. It's sort of all culminating into this one match where Dustin just gets his shit kicked in by Lance Archer.
Yeah, Cody likes towel stuff. He there's a bit, which match is that? Kenny Omega versus, is it a Kazuchika Okada match?
I believe it was the Dominion 2 out of 3 falls match.
Yes, I think it was. Yeah, so yeah, he's got a thing about towels.
Yeah, you can take the guy out of the South, but you can't take the South out of the guy. Does that make sense? Anyways, there's one other stat matrix scatter plot here I want to pull up here real quick. To sort of just talk about some other things. You made this sort of a scatter plot here, Craig. Average offense percentage versus win-loss record. Do you just want to run us through what we're looking at?
Yeah, so we were referencing this before so this is essentially a comparison of AEW wrestlers, the amount that they win again versus their average offense percentage of the match. So for example, we were talking about Cody earlier. His average is 56% of possession, and he's +6 in terms of wins and losses. And the reason that it's interesting for this match we've just spoken about, Lance Archer, gets 44% of the offense in a match, which kind of goes against the image you'll have of him in your head. And it's even more interesting when you compare him with Brody Lee. They've been booked very similarly, but Brody Lee gets 85% of the offense in his match. Wardlow gets 73% of the offense in his matches. So we've got these two big wrestlers that are being presented as unstoppable forces. And yeah, they're dominating matches. And then you've got Archer, who is presumably the quintessential unstoppable force, with only 40% in a match.
Yeah, it goes back to the idea that like Archer is someone that is playing with his food, whereas someone like a Brody Lee, someone like a Wardlow, they are just going in and doing absolute destruction. Archer is coming in, he wants to fight, He
Mhm.
wants, he likes, and he's laughing at it. He gets joy from getting hit.
Yeah.
He likes taking that offense. And that does obviously, skew his numbers down because he's asking to be hit. Whereas Brody
Yeah.
Lee is like, Brody Lee's not asking to be hit. Brody is out there to just destroy people and get some more cult members, really. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
just
absolutely. Which kind of builds the mystique around Archer at this point.
mhm.
Brody Lee, 85% of a match. So if you're a wrestler, you just need to find a way to get your stuff in, as your, that's plan one, plan A. Archer, people are already they're already, putting things on him already. What's the next? You need to come up with a more sophisticated plan. You need, it's not just about being fast or getting to him. It's about doing something that can actually affect him.
That's a great segue into the next topic here. I want to look towards that Cody Archer. Of course, that is the finals out of these semifinals. Cody versus Archer taking place for the TNT title at Double or Nothing. That's a great talking point there is that Archer is someone that takes a lot of offense. He's letting people get their stuff in. He's literally asking for it. As someone, looking at this, Cody has 56% average offense. Archer's 44. Cody does a lot of strikes. Cody gets a lot of offense in, but versus an opponent like Lance Archer who absorbs a lot of punishment, do you think Cody will have any sort of advantage heading into that match?
Well, the numbers actually marry up perfectly. Cody, his average is 56% of the offense, whereas Archer's is 44. So Archer has already been winning matches against opponents that typically give out 56% of the offense.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you're looking for OCD stats, there you go.
I felt the connections in my brain fire together when you said that, and I was like, oh no, that's awesome.
Yeah. What on earth does Cody do? That's the only question here, really. The other thing that you might like to point out is that people seem to be kicking out of his finisher.
Oh, Cody's, yes. That was a thing I was noticing is that Cody has Cody has a lot of finishers. Obviously, the Crossroads is his main finisher, but of course he has the figure four lock. He's also I believe he's used the Cody Cutter to win a match, along with I believe a roll up at some point as well. It was a trend I was also noticing for a little bit is that early on in his promotion, Cody Rhodes was just using one Crossroads to win a match, and then at a certain point, believe it was the Chris Jericho match where Chris Jericho might have been the first person to kick out a Crossroads. I have to double check that. I would have to double check.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, I would have to double check that. I'm not entirely positive, but then it became this thing that then all of a sudden in the new year, Cody is now using two Crossroads to put in his opponent. Whether it be a Kip Sabian, whether it be a Jimmy Havoc. He's using two Crossroads to put down his opponent. Just it almost feels like
I think he might have used 3 against Kip Sabian.
Oh, are you protecting Kip Sabian even more?
Not to be that guy, but if I don't say it, then somebody will.
What are we protecting Kip Sabian even more? Are you 3?
No. Like, if you go onto like wrestling Twitter and you say a stat and it's wrong, people get like really upset.
That's so that's so funny. But point being is that in the new year, maybe it's the addition of Arn Anderson. They've been looking at the numbers and they're like, oh, let's just hit him with 2 Crossroads and then I'll pin the opponent. And it became even prevalent even more in the Darby Allin match where Cody hits 1 Crossroads, goes for the pin, and Darby kicks out of it.
Yeah.
It's now there's evidence suggesting that 1 Crossroads is not enough. If you're looking at the Cody Archer match, he might have to hit 2 crossroads, and I fear that even hitting 2 crossroads might not be enough against a person like Lance Archer.
Yeah, so to just throw the numbers in there, Cody has hit more finishers than anybody else in 2020, which isn't that surprising because he's often throwing 2 or 3 of them into a match. 11 finishers this year compared to Pac's 8 and John Moxley's 6.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he is throwing them around. It's I don't know what they're doing with that. They must be changing his finisher because he hit Sean Spears. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 that he hit Sean Spears with. I think it must have been 2.
Believe 2.
Yeah, and then Spears kicked out, and it wasn't a title match. It wasn't a main event of a pay-per-view or anything. It was a tournament match on Dynamite, but he then finished him off with the figure 4. So I don't know if they're changing his finishing move. MJF might take it, and it'll just be called the double crossroads, and Cody will do something else, perhaps. That would be my guess.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. It'd be definitely interesting to see where that sort of goes. At the very least, they're establishing the idea that the crossroads is not a wholly effective finisher, which is interesting. It needs to be done twice. It needs to be, a lot of people kick out of it the first time. It's not really the, versus a finisher like the One-Winged Angel, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You could count on your hand how many people have kicked out of the One-Winged Angel. And many of those people are, I think, just Okada. Yeah, it's like not many people have kicked out of that move.
The One-Winged Angel, I believe, has been kicked out of once. It was by Ibushi in DDT. I think that's right.
So we got Ibushi, Okada.
I don't think Okada's kicked out of it.
I thought he did. I thought in the. I swear I thought Okada was the first person. Oh, not first person.
Sorry, I'm being stubborn now. So I think what was going to happen with that was that Okada was going to kick out of it in the 5th match. So apparently what was going to happen was Omega was going to keep the title against Tanahashi and then would go on to do the America show where Okada got the title back off Jay White, and Okada was going to beat Omega in that match. And I would guess that Okada would have kicked out of the One-Winged Angel in that match.
I will admit, I will say, I am double checking online because I swear he did it. But I'll double check it. I'll double check it later. Yeah, so any other thoughts looking at Lance versus Cody? The big point here for me is, you're right. I mean, Archer has defeated people who have given him 50%, 56% offense, the exact average offense percentage that Cody has currently. Obviously, we're still a couple weeks away from Double or Nothing, so I guess those numbers could change, but it doesn't look good. Numbers wise, it does not look good for Cody. Are we expecting you were showing me a picture, never kicked out. God dang it. God dang it. I swear I remembered.
Although I'm sure Ibushi has. I'm sure I've heard that. But it was like way back in DDT.
It maybe it wasn't Okada kicking out of the One-Winged Angel, but rather him putting his foot on the rope during the match.
That might be right, yeah.
That might be what I'm thinking of. Either way, Cody versus Lance Archer, a lot of different stuff up in the air. Interested to see how the next couple weeks set up that match. But yeah, I would say right now my favorite, based on the numbers, is probably Lance Archer. I would imagine he's the favorite.
The other thing to highlight with Cody in his favor is that he's really been picking up steam in recent weeks, and in fact is chipping away at John Moxley's kind of dominance in the men's division. Moxley is 9 for 9 in 2020. The closest in male singles matches is Cody, who's 8 for 1.
Yeah, well, let's talk about these rankings real quick for the 2020 league standings, according to ProWrestlingMusings.com. Like you said, Moxley 9-0, Cody 8-1. I assume that 1 is Lance Archer here. No, not
No,
Lance
no.
Archer. Who am I thinking of? No.
Cody lost to MJF. MJF.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How can I forget? I can't. Yeah. So who else is in the top five here, based on your standings?
Um, so following Cody is Kenny Omega, who's won 4 singles matches since Hangman Page decided to stay home. Good for him. Um, Followed up by Lance Archer and Brody Lee, who are both 4-0, making up your top five. You've got Jake Hager, Sean Spears just outside, MJF, Darby Allin, Wardlow rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, obviously, a lot of those numbers sort of being helped padded a little bit by the fact that we had this round of tapings. You know, obviously
Yeah.
Cody, Omega was doing a lot of singles matches. Archer, Brody Lee, obviously, Sean Spears, all guys that had a lot of matches and a lot of chance to pick up a lot of wins in that last round of tapings. Interested to see who potentially, now that we're getting people coming back, like an MJF, like I don't know, a Matt Hardy, I guess. Now that we're seeing these people come back, interested to see how they pick up wins heading into Double or Nothing, especially who potentially could be Moxley's next challenger.
Yeah, and the other one that's one of the people that that could fit that bill is Pac. Pac's down in like 13th. He was always in the top 5 for the AEW rankings before all this happened.
Yeah, I would have. I think you could have maybe guessed that it would have been maybe MJF or Pac under normal circumstances. Yeah. Obviously, Pac is out of the picture for however long right now, sadly. I'm very interested to see how that shapes up. Looking at the women's division, I think it's pretty obvious who the next challenger is going to be for that women's title. You know, you're looking at number 1, Hikaru Shida, 7 wins, 1 loss, versus who's the champion right below her, Nyla Rose, 4 wins, 1 loss. I mean, Shida's challenging for the title, right?
Surely, yeah. I did a written piece for somebody a while ago, and we were talking about how the AEW rankings worked, and my biggest sticking point with them was that the rankings felt arbitrary. They just kind of used them. They used the rankings to justify what they wanted rather than getting what they wanted by working the rankings. So, for example, every time Chris Statlander got a title shot, she'd kind of jump up to the top of the rankings without winning too many matches, whereas Hikaru Shida had been top of the rankings a couple of times and had just never got a title shot because that week the number 1 contender just wasn't getting a title shot. So it felt very arbitrary. So if they don't give Hikaru Shida now a title shot now, the rankings are done. completely just done.
There's also
SmackDown 10 kind of situation.
Oh yeah, remember what is the SmackDown 10 was what, 3 weeks? I think is what they did.
I think it was 1 week and they gave up.
God. Yeah, to talk about Chris Statlander. Yeah, I do remember thinking that, like, because also Chris Statlander, she debuted and then had several matches on Dark, which sort of helped pad. I keep saying pad, but help. She added more wins against people like Diamante, Swole, just a couple people that were like, they're not really contenders right now. Just so it just helped Chris get up into a quick shot up into the number 1 ranking.
I think they need to do something with that as well. Like, there's too much. And when you look at the tag rankings, top rank for AEW is Dark Order, 5 matches, 5 wins, but those have all been dark matches. Like, it feels like it needs to be a case of when you get onto the rankings, you're only competing against other teams on the rankings. Otherwise, if you want to say we're going to use rankings because we want it to be sports based and we don't want to insult your intelligence, then begs the question, yeah, but when you say you don't want to insult my intelligence, how intelligent do you think I am? If you think you can, use backdoors like Dark versus Jobbers.
there's the counter argument about, well, those are still wins, right? I see what you're saying, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
of course.
Dark Order, they still have 5 wins. Yeah, they're against people like, Sean Spears and whoever, whoever the wrestler of the week, or versus Strong Hearts or TH2 against people that are very low on the rankings. But at the same time, there are still wins on
Sure.
the
Yeah.
B show. So yeah, I see both sides of the arguments. It's like they're still winning, but it's like these wins don't really matter. I think that's the caveat to the thing, is like wins that matter
Yeah.
versus wins that are just wins.
And I do agree. I think if you're doing a sports based thing, you kind of a win needs to be a win. Um, I don't know, maybe it depends how complex you want it to be. Um, but it could just be like people on Dark fight against people on Dark, and then you get promoted to Dynamite. I don't. It's
The regulation league.
well, yeah. How convoluted do you want it to be? It just that Dark Order stat sticks out, 5 wins, but they haven't beat they haven't beat S. Oh no, they did beat SCU, I suppose.
Yes, I believe that might have been their only
Yeah,
non-dark win.
yeah. They've certainly not beat Young Bucks, Lucha, those kind of teams.
Yeah, obviously. Also asterisked. Obviously, a lot of it might be different in if the COVID and quarantining wasn't an issue.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we would have seen them have more matches against the Young Bucks and whatnot. Also, obviously, also this upcoming Wednesday in AEW Dynamite is gonna be very interesting to watch how that plays out. But yeah, I mean,
to see who's there.
yeah, just looking at the rankings, yeah, seeing who's there is gonna be a big thing, because there's the aspect of that. We have the tag match coming up, which is Kenny Omega versus Matt Hardy. Where's Adam Page? He's obviously been quarantining, but is he gonna stop quarantining? Is he gonna go in? It's a tough thing because it's like, obviously I think all these wrestlers should probably be quarantining. But so it's all screwed up. Let's start talking about next week's matches while we're talking about it right now.
Yeah, I think this thing is really interesting because I've got a very cynical, like, what if they wouldn't turn that into a strategy, would they? They wouldn't tell Adam Page to just stay home so that they can say he's refusing to come in as a baby move.
As a babyface. I don't know. It's tough because I could easily see WWE doing that. I.e., look at like, oh, let's fire this guy and then have him still compete in our NXT title tournament.
Yeah.
And write a whole storyline around that. I could, obviously there's that WWE brain rot of like, I could see other companies doing such a thing, but AEW, it's tough because they still have a little more trust, I guess, in their audience. I could see them.
I could also see him. He seems like somebody that would, choose to do that off his own back.
Exactly that, and I think that's the big thing, is that I could easily see Adam Page being like, "Yeah, I'm staying home. It's the smart thing to do right now is stay at home. I'm going to stay home." You could make an argument that like I could see AEW just being like, yeah, Adam Page isn't here because he's choosing to stay home for whatever reason, but because he is sort of like,
it's also not like he needs to worry about his place on the card because when he comes back, people will go crazy for him.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what happens with all of this stuff. Obviously, there's everything that's happening in the world is very difficult to wrap the head around when it comes to professional wrestling. But so that is basically, I guess, the idea. Next week's Dynamite, or this upcoming Dynamite, Omega, Matt Hardy, the debut of Matt Hardy on AEW Dynamite in a match versus Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, the Les Sex Gods. I said the Les Sex Gods. I don't know, what am I doing? And a street fight, which would be very interesting to watch. What else we got? AEW World Champion Jon Moxley versus Frankie Kazarian in a non-title match. Cody versus Joey Janela, and the return of MJF. Any upcoming thoughts about these matches?
Just have you noticed? So it's Le Sex Gods because he's the Spanish god, but Le is French for the not Spanish.
Yes, it's the perfect nonsense heel stuff that Jericho is known for, being like, yeah, Le Champion, which is French, Spanish gods. We're just gonna put them all together because why not? And is it gonna annoy someone?
Yeah.
Probably. Well, guess what? I just worked them because I'm the heel. It's like, oh, dang it! You.
Yeah, no, it's great.
You got me. You got me through language. You've upset me through language, Chris Jericho. Oh man. But yeah, I'm excited to see what sort of things happen. Obviously, with people returning in a live show format, I presume at Daly's Place. I'm interested to see what sort of happens. I do understand that I looked into it. It is a combination of they're doing live shows and taping some matches, not just for
Right.
Dark, but
Okay.
I believe they are taping next week's show, and then they're taking off, and then they're doing a live show the Wednesday before Double or Nothing, and then Double or Nothing is live, and then
Okay.
after that is who knows, I guess. I think yeah, as of right now, I think it's a who knows. So yeah, I'm interested to see where this all heads with people coming back. With obviously, some places opening and everything that's happening in this world, obviously taking it all with a grain of salt. Yeah, I'm interested to see what this extra Dynamite's gonna be. Obviously, they're sort of gonna be shaping up Double or Nothing. Do you have any picks about who potential matches can be at Double or Nothing based on these numbers, based on these rankings?
Yeah. So obviously, it just I've been trying not to say it, but I'm gonna. It shouldn't be happening. It's madness. I'm a teacher. I'm not at work. I'm probably not going to be at work for the next month, 2 months, and some guys need to put on a wrestling show. It shouldn't be happening. That's not to say that I don't thoroughly enjoy it on Wednesday. I do. It's a fantastic escape. It really, really is. I'm really interested to see Cody versus Janela. Is that right?
Correct.
Or is that correct?
Yes, Cody versus Joey Janela.
Yeah. Yeah, because Moxley has somebody else. I think I'm mixing the two of them up.
Moxley is
Interesting.
against Frankie Kazarian.
Right, right. So I would imagine there's going to be some kind of interaction between Archer and Cody, or Cody and Jake Roberts if he's there. Probably shouldn't be.
Should not.
Um, yeah. And Matt Hardy in the ring will be interesting. Obviously, it's a bit controversial because he's done some good stuff and some iffy stuff, to put it nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of forgot it was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sort of agree with you that there's the aspect of like whether or not wrestling should be happening right now, and it's like,
Yeah.
but I've read a bunch of stuff and I looked into it, and it's very tough because it's like there is the moral ethical quandary of this shouldn't be happening, and because we have to be staying home, the only way to get rid of the virus is to stay home, to stay protected, flatten the
Mhm.
curve, all this other stuff. Then there's also the sense that the financial sense, sadly, that AEW has these contracts. They don't have the back catalog that the WWE Network is, where they can just put on old matches, right? If they don't do a live TV show, if AEW doesn't do a TV show, doesn't put out something, is AEW gonna be around anymore? I mean, that's my concern. To me, it's also like you got to talk and figure out these contracts, because obviously there's probably no pandemic clause in these contracts. There's no social distance clause in any of these TV contracts. So there's a thing of like, I'm worried about like, if they stop wrestling, is AEW gonna lose their TV show? And if they lose their TV show, then they're pretty much shut out of luck because they can't sell any tickets anymore for however long. It's all screwed up. It's so screwed up right now, especially in America, obviously.
especially America. Yes.
Yeah.
I saw a good quote on Twitter that was, "America is the world's Florida."
What's funny is I haven't. That's not the first time I've heard that quote, because I've heard that quote when it's come to non-quarantine, non-pandemic related ideas.
Right.
Just America's just like, it's just like we're tired. I saw a tweet today that was like, we're tired. It's only for America to be tired of the coronavirus and then just go back to work and be like, yep, it's over now. We're going to go back to work and just it's whatever. Yeah, it's the world we live in, sadly. It's easily, especially the world I live in, I guess. Being the one that lives in Georgia, one of the multiple states that open up prematurely. Yeah. On the wrestling side of things, it's just everything's very interested. Like you said, I do like watching AEW Dynamite. I think AEW Dynamite, versus other wrestling shows that have been put out, whether it be WWE, Stardom, whatever else shows that have been put out with no fans in attendance. I really enjoy how AEW Dynamite is doing it, in the sense that they have like a faux crowd cheering and stuff. And that, for me, that's helped out a lot.
It's the best version of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's what I really like the most about what they've been doing, is that, if we can't have fans, let's just make fans, I guess, in a weird way, out of our wrestlers. My favorite tweet I've ever seen about all of this stuff was, it's very reminiscent, and you might appreciate this especially. It's very reminiscent of going to school, and there is that one kid that keeps doing something bad, and it ends up being a punishment for the entire class. That's what it feels like. It's just like, It's like, come on, guys, just stop going to the beaches, and then we could all be okay.
Oh, those beach photos are crazy.
Oh, did you see the one about the one guy, the one lawyer that showed up dressed like the Grim Reaper?
Yes, that was funny. Yeah.
It's just like, oh my god. It's like, I get what you're saying, my man, but just really beating the nail over the head there. I love it. But also, come on, man, you're also out.
Yeah, it should still also be inside.
Yeah, it's like everyone should be inside. Yeah, it all sort of sucks, but I keep telling people all the time, one day at a time. There's a lot of people out there that are getting tired of it, and I understand why you're tired of it. We're all sort of tired of it, but just keep staying inside. At the very least, wear masks, wash your hands consistently, and we're gonna get through this together. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This was our first episode, so thank you so much for listening to it. I guess we'll be back next week for more conversation, I guess, Craig. We'll be back next time for more conversation, more stats, more analysis about what's happening in the world of professional wrestling. Craig, what do you have to promote?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Ryan, for taking the lead on this and hosting. Excellent job, as always. Hopefully, I in particular will get better at doing these kind of things as we go. If you have enjoyed the content of this podcast, please check out prowrestlingmusings.com, where you can find everything that we've spoken about. The point of the site is that it's looking at wrestling in a sports-orientated way. There are league tables, match reports, and feature pieces that kind of explore trends or what's going on in particular matches.
And of course, you can find, if you want a quick link, all of those links about sort of what the tables and stuff we talked about are in the description of this podcast episode. So those rankings, those graphs, those average offense percentages versus win-loss records, all that stuff you can find in the description of this episode. So just go down there and take a click and take a gander, why don't you? You can find me at Hit the Books Pod. Of course, that's where you're listening this feed from. So why not subscribe while you're at it? Of course, by subscribing, you will be helping out, promoting the show even more, and more people will be able to find it, especially if you leave a review. just leave a review. We will greatly appreciate that. There's not just this show on this podcast feed. There are a bunch of other shows. Of course, every Friday I put out a show, Hit the Books, which is a realistic fantasy booking podcast, SmackDown versus Raw, where us two hosts go head-to-head in presenting our various cards of SmackDown, of Raw, going head-to-head, and you, the listener, can vote and decide which card was better, and that card will then get to mess with the other person's card next week. Anyways, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Follow at Hit the Books Pod on Twitter, along with at Pro Wrestling Musings on Twitter. I believe it's at PW Musings. Am I correct, Craig?
At PM Musings, yeah. At PM Musings.
Go follow that today. Leave a review. Subscribe to this podcast. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening to Wrestling with Statistics. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.